I'm a trial attorney with the law firm of Curran Wagstaff here in San Francisco. We've been protecting workers' rights on an individual and class action basis for more than 15 years. I'm going to talk about one of my current cases, and that's my client, Tim Larson, who was the second attorney in command at the San Francisco Housing Authority. He's been there more than 8 years. In 2008, when Henry Alvarez was appointed as the head of the agency, the executive director, things began to change for Mr. Larson. Mr. Alvarez came from San Antonio, where he was the executive director of the Housing Authority there. When he worked there, he threatened to kill a female employee by strangling her. That lawsuit was settled, but despite the fact that that happened and he was accused of bullying and harassing employees there, the then city administrator, Ed Lee, determined that he was the best person for the job to run the Housing Authority here in San Francisco. When Mr. Alvarez took the job in 2008, he began bullying and harassing employees throughout the agency. He basically he's what I like to call an equal opportunity offender, and he'll bully you based on your minority status, your gender, your sexual orientation. He'll bully anyone who doesn't follow to toe his line. And that was his MO for the past 4 years. On Mr. Larson's, for example, of Mr. Larson's intimidation and bullying that he suffered, he was denied promotions. Preferential assignments were given to people who followed Mr. Alvarez's instructions. Mr. Larson, even though he was the second lawyer in command at the agency, was ordered to do menial tasks like drive Mr. Alvarez around and remove shoes from overhead power lines. Those are the types of instructions that he gave him because Mr. Larson wasn't towing the line. He was also told not to hire so many Asians at the agency and also to prefer other racial minorities. The last straw came in 2012 when Mr. Larson was threatened with termination because he wouldn't go along Mr. Alvarez's plan to award public contracts to certain cronies at City Hall. And the way they would do this project was by getting the lowest bid for a public agency contract, and when they found out who the lowest bidder was, they would tell their cronies to bid $5 lower. And then they would get the project in the second round of bidding. When Mr. Larson complained about that, again, he was threatened with termination. He finally came and saw me. We filed a complaint in November with the city. Since that time, Luis Rennie, the former city attorney, has been investigating this. There's been no reports of any progress, and they refuse to give us any information about their investigation. Mr. Alvarez has gone on paid leave since this investigation started. And Mr. Larson has gone back to work, but unfortunately there's no happy ending to the story yet. As Ms. Plummer and Dr. Kerr have already explained, Mr. Larson's suffering the same kind of retaliation that they have suffered. Mr. Larson's been stripped of all of his job duties. He now sits in his office with nothing to do on a daily basis. You can imagine how humiliating that is. He's given no information about why he's being treated like this. We know that HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Agency, is investigating the agency for a variety of wrongdoing. And I want to echo the comments of Dr. Kerr and Ms. Plummer that you will be retaliated against if you blow the whistle. And the best thing you can do is see an attorney as soon as possible and gather your evidence as soon as possible and make plans to defend yourself against that retaliation. One final word. There are a number of procedural hurdles that you got to get over if you're going to successfully file a discrimination or retaliation lawsuit. There are a number of strict time limits that apply, and I want to urge you that if you think you're the victim of wrongdoing, you want to see an attorney as soon as possible because there are a number of time limits that if you let them go by, your rights will be lost forever, regardless of the severity of the wrongdoing. Thank you.